Hello. Hey, hey. Right on. Welcome. We'll give it a few minutes. We'll wait till 10:30 to get started. Morning from Petawawa. Appreciate it. Well, I'm going to attempt to make a joke in a little bit, but I'll wait till 10:30. Can everybody hear me okay and see me okay? Okay, good.
All right, I can monitor the chat with this too. On here.
Okay. Not too much is up, James. What's up with you? Hi, Lucy. Good morning, Trenton. Good morning, Comox. Once again, everybody can hear me okay, see me okay? Don't worry, I'll put up the slides soon so you don't have to stare at me the whole time. Hi from Nova Scotia, right on. Gold Lake. Hope. North Bay, all the way from North Bay. Oh, am I losing the feed here? How's the feed on your side?
Oh, everything's right on the phone. On here, I can't.
Yeah, I'm just saying that. How's the feed look?
Oh, I monitor the chat.
I need you to see the feed too.
It's all black.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. It is 10:30. Uh, I'm going to be sharing. Hopefully, everybody can see me right now. I'm going to be sharing my slideshow just in a minute. Can everybody see me and hear me? I just want to see in the chat if you're seeing me and hearing me. Yes, from Ben. Okay, right on. Both. All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. All right, so you can see from the background here today, this is health promotion between two ferns. Hopefully you get the reference, the pop culture reference. I promise I won't behave like Zach Galifianakis. Really wouldn't want to do that because it'd probably be my last broadcast. But I just thought I'd make a quick little attempt at humor. It's tense times out there right now for sure. And if I got a little chuckle out of you this morning, then I'll take it before we dive into nutrition. So sports nutrition is the topic for today. There's no sports on TV. We can't play any team sports. So I will say, in the spirit of this briefing, it's a great time to train, whether that be on your own or keeping social distancing with others. There still is a lot we can do in the comfort of our own home, or perhaps outdoors, wherever you can pick your spots to train. It could be a great time to train. So really happy to be able to deliver this brief for health promotions in this medium. This is the first time that I've done this along with my colleagues. You'll see on the CAF Connection website that this is a national initiative where different health promotion managers are taking different topics, and some nutrition topics were already covered. And this is, I think, the first briefing around performance as far as sports nutrition. So I'm excited to be able to deliver that to you today, and we'll have a bit of fun. I will try to make this a little bit interactive. I have a few different poll questions that I'll throw out there as we go through the topic to get you engaged. As far as questions as we go, I have a limited ability to be monitoring the chat as I present the material, and I have quite a bit of material that I'm going to attempt to get through today. So with that, I'll just ask that you keep your questions till the end of the briefing, and then I'll be able to have a good look at the chat as those questions come up and try to answer them to the best of my ability. So yeah, you won't have to look at me for too much longer. Right now, what I'll do is I will fire up the slideshow. Trying to fire up the slideshow. Okay, and now you should see just the slides and not my face, or do you see both? You see both, okay. Well, then I hope you can live with both because this is the format that I'll deliver in. So the first slide is just kind of a slide that all of our managers and specialists are using for their presentations. Just before we get started, I want to let you know that this presentation is the property of Department of National Defense, so we don't want this duplicated in any way. Some of the topics discussed in the webinar might be sensitive in nature. Nutrition is a pretty safe topic, but you never know what might come up. So we please ask you to be conscious of that. Might not be appropriate for children, especially this brief when we talk about performance nutrition. It's definitely geared towards adults. There might be some things that you could take from it for your children, especially as they grow older into adolescence potentially. But for the most part, we want to keep this content applicable to adults in case you have a child on your lap at home or something like that. If people are going to tell stories, they're their stories to tell. Again, this dives more into maybe the addictions or social wellness spheres of what we do. But there could be some potential of that kind of information. So just be aware of that. And also, this webinar is being recorded. So we hope to capture a bunch of these and use them later so that people can have access to them. So understand that that is happening as I'm taking questions in the chat. And that sort of thing, that there is a recording here for sure. Okay. So sports nutrition. So I think I already said it, but Lucas DeMarco, North Bay. I'm the health promotion manager here at 22 Wing. I've been here. I'm in my 10th year delivering health promotion programming and including this program. This is one of my favorites to deliver, working with athletes, especially. It's very exciting, and I'm very happy to be able to doing this for you today. For your awareness, health promotion has two main nutrition programs as far as classroom environment. We have weight wellness, and that is about everyday healthy eating, maybe managing your weight a little bit better, all those sorts of skills. And then we have top fuel for top performance, and that's really, again, nutrition geared towards performance. So the philosophy of Top Fuel is to look at members in the CAF as athletes in uniform. Okay, so we see no difference between a member in the CAF performing their daily duties as somebody who is a high intensity world class athlete, and that's kind of the angle that we have for this program. And a lot of the literature is taken from those types of programs for high intensity world class athletes. Looking at top performance for nutrition, basically 75% of your intake throughout the day, what you eat and drink during the day, is the foundation for performance. That accounts for about 75% of your output. About 24 to 25% is timing in terms of what you eat, drink before, during, and potentially after exercise. Okay, so those are the two biggest ones. 75 plus 24 to 25% are huge chunks that we really want to focus on, and that's what I'm going to focus on in today's briefing. The last one, maybe 1%, maybe a little bit more, depending, is when we talk about sports supplements, ergogenic aids, performance enhancers. I went back and forth when constructing this presentation, and I thought that I would probably leave that last tier off the table. Probably not a good idea to try to open that can of worms. That could be a presentation within itself. So for the sake of this presentation, we're definitely going to focus on the bottom one in terms of it being your foundation for everyday eating, but also the second one as well. If you want more information on performance enhancers, go to this link, and this is actually a really good publication that is out there that has a lot of the popular ones in case you're looking to dive into creatine, glutamine, protein, all those ENs, or all those different performance enhancers that you could experiment with. Again, we like to focus on food and healthy eating, but if you are interested, there is some good information on the risks and benefits of those types of things. Again, 0 to 1% to gain that much performance, that means a lot for somebody who's a world-class athlete, where there's an event that could separate first and 40th place between milliseconds and seconds. But for most of us that are just amateur athletes, or just somebody that wants to get the most out of their workouts to support a healthy lifestyle, we know that we don't need to go there. But again, this resource is there for you just in case. Okay, one of the big discussions that we have in Top Fuel for Top Performance is where we expend our energy, how much energy we expend, and what that looks like in terms of creating a calorie target for ourselves. And this is a really good slide that helps us understand where we expend our energy. So first of all, the most obvious one that I'll start at is physical activity. 15 to 30% of our calorie expenditure is spent during physical activity. You're going to get the most expenditure through aerobic exercise. So for example, when you're in a workout, during an hour, you might burn 700 to 1,000 calories on the treadmill or on the bike or on the elliptical or something like that. And for resistance training, you might only burn 300 to 400 calories, for example, in a weightlifting session of that duration. So during that time chunk, definitely aerobic exercise is burning more calories. But what we see in terms of resting energy expenditure is that incorporating both, so having aerobic exercise, but also resistance training to tear down those muscle fibers to create more tissues to repair during resting energy expenditure, we boost our metabolism and we get more out of our resting energy expenditure. So they feed off of each other. There's a relationship between all three. The biggest chunk is your resting energy expenditure. 55 to 70% of your calories are burned at rest. Again, that's recovering from physical activity and keeping your body going with all the other things that need to happen. So boosting that resting energy expenditure is really really important thing to think about when we're doing our physical activity and balancing our workouts between aerobic exercise and resistance training. Thermic effect of food, 10%, it's still quite significant. So just the process that is needed to break down food in the digestive system and create tissues with that food, potentially excrete that food, all that kind of stuff is going to add up to about 10% of our expenditure. So it takes energy to process food. So that's the whole kind of gamut of where we spend our energy throughout the day. And then the question is, okay, well, how much energy do I expend? What's my calorie target? One of the things that I battled when constructing this briefing was, how much do I want my participants to have to get out their calculator? And I decided that it should be none. For this forum, I'm going to ask that, or I'll just say that we won't have to get out our calculators to get into the nitty-gritty calculations. The one resource that I definitely want to point people towards in terms of looking at an estimated calorie target is dfit.ca. So if you go into dfit.ca and you go on to the nutritional section of dfit.ca, there's a calculation there that you can enter a few variables like your sex, your weight, your goals in terms of, do I want to gain weight, lose weight, or just remain the same with weight maintenance. That resource can give you a pretty decent estimation for your calorie target that is personal to you. So again, we won't do that right now, but again, there's your resource that you can use. So the first question that I'll ask just in the chat, okay, what are the 6 classes of nutrients? Okay, now as I check the chat, I see that I'm cutting in and out. I hope that's not the case for you at home. Hopefully that's getting sorted out as I go. Okay, and I see that somebody saw the question. So carbs, that's 1. Fat, protein. Okay, those are the 3 big macronutrients. What else? There's 6 of them. You got 3. Water, nice. Minerals, and if we got minerals, there's 1 other ones. Vitamins, right on. So you got all 6. So these are your classes of nutrients. So water, carbs, protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. So water, often termed the forgotten nutrient, but very important, especially when we look at athletic performance. Carbs, protein, and fat, those are your big macronutrients that we need in large quantities. And then vitamins and minerals are more supportive in nature. Hopefully we're getting that in the food that we pick in terms of carbs, proteins, and fats. But you got all 6. Those are your 6 classes of nutrients, and we'll spend a bit of time on each of them. And with that, I'm going to ask the first poll question. So you see on the slide, which nutrient is the most crucial to athletic performance? So if you go in and look on your top right, it should say poll somewhere, and I will go in and activate that. So I'm sharing that poll right now, and it should come up for you. Which nutrient is the most crucial to athletic performance? Okay, Trevor's giving me a thumbs up here. He's letting me know that it's working. Okay, I'll give it just another second or two so everybody can get their answers in. I'll let you know after you picked one, you can't re-pick. You got to be committed. All right, so My results show water is leading the way at 59%, followed by carbs, then protein, and nobody went with fat, vitamins, or minerals. You are correct. So back to my slideshow. Hopefully it shows up for you. Or do I have to get out of the poll? Bear with me. First time doing this. Oh, you see the slides? Okay. So if you go back to the slides, you should see my slideshow now. And you see water? You see a slide with water on it? Okay, good. Yes, you were right. Sorry about that rigmarole, but fluids, water is the most important for athletes. You could wake up the morning of a marathon, for example, and be too nervous to eat a meal because you've been training so long and you don't want to mess up. But if you wake up and you're dehydrated, it's going to do a lot more harm to you than the reverse. You can definitely perform pretty well when you're starving to a certain extent. But if you're dehydrated, that slide says it right there, as little as 2% dehydration, 2% body weight would result in 15 to 20% performance decline. And the trick here is that thirst is definitely dulled by exercise. So we have to be preventative in our water and fluid consumption as we go. Before we get thirsty, we need to be drinking water. As far as a target for fluid consumption, 2 liters a day seems to be a reasonable target, but it really is dependent on so many different variables, both individual and environmental, like temperature and all that kind of thing. But 2 liters a day seems to be a pretty fair target as far as your 8 glasses of water a day, 250 milliliters each. But again, because it's individual, a better way to look at it might be to look at feedback like our urine color. So the more pale yellows, we know that we're hydrated well versus the more dark and concentrated yellows that we see in our urine. Again, that has its limitations. It could be messed up with so many things like our multivitamins and different fruits and vegetables that we might eat. But for the most part, it's a pretty good rule to go by in terms of knowing if you're hydrated or not. Okay, moving on to carbs. You'll see at the top, kilocalories per gram, 4. That's kind of the molecular currency of how much energy carbohydrate gives you. Carbohydrates are hugely important for athletes. We all have to make friends with carbohydrates if we want to be thinking about our athletic performance. It's in our blood, it's in our liver, it's in our muscles. It gets stored as muscle glycogen. And that being said, it's also the main fuel source for your brain, or the only fuel source for your brain, I should say. So if you want to be mentally alert during physical activity, if you're playing a game and you got to use your brain while you're using your body, you definitely want to have enough carbohydrates so that you're mentally alert and ready that way. But muscle glycogen is really the main theme when we talk about carbohydrate. It's very important for both explosive movements and also replenishing our muscle glycogen after competition. So, a poll question. What percentage of kilocalories energy in your diet should come from carbohydrates? So I will go into the poll again, and maybe this will go a little bit smoother for me. We'll see. So polls. And I'm sharing that now. What percentage of calories, energy in your diet should come from carbohydrates? Okay, I think that's about everybody. So we have 6 answers saying, well, 19% say 15 to 30, 38% say 30 to 45, and 44% say 45 to 60. Let's see how you did. Yes, you did well. So actually, it's 45 to 60% of your calorie consumption or the energy that you're taking in should come from carbohydrate sources. So the majority of you were right. Some people are very surprised by that metric. They think that that's a lot of carbs, but again, if you're an athlete looking at high performance, you definitely want to be consuming carbs. So hopefully you see my slide again now, refueling your muscle glycogen. Okay, right on. This just shows a 60% carb diet versus a 40% carb diet, and the difference in terms of replacing muscle glycogen. Muscle glycogen, so carbohydrates stored in your muscles that are ready to explode with energy, is hugely important and very relatable to performance outputs. And you can see somebody that has 60% carbs in their diet in the blue is able to rebound on back-to-back training days. This is a cyclist, just for your information, on 3 back-to-back training days. And they're able to recover each time and have that energy ready to go for the next day. Whereas somebody with low carbohydrate intake, and that's 40%, that sounds like high to a lot of people, but we'll call it low, 40%, we see that you're not able to recover in terms of your muscle glycogen stores. So a big difference just between 40 to 60%. So if you're looking at a diet like, I don't know, the Atkins diet or anything that's high protein, low carb, I would just say good luck in terms of being an endurance athlete for sure, or any athlete that needs high energy output for a significant amount of time on back-to-back days. We definitely need to have a fair amount of carbohydrate in our system to make sure we can recover. In terms of the sources, we can think about our sources in terms of simple sugars and complex starches. So for everyday eating, we want to definitely concentrate on the complex starches, something that are a little bit healthier in terms of giving us a lot of fiber, maybe some trace proteins, some trace fats, but complex carbohydrates definitely are good for long-term health. But simple sugars for athletes definitely do play a role in terms of replacing glycogen stores. So while health promotion staff aren't usually promoting things like jam and jelly and juice and all those sorts of things, if you're an athlete, those might be the things that you need to replace your muscle glycogen after exercise, or potentially use for fuel during exercise, because they're easily digestible, they're quick energy, and they give you that quick carbohydrate fuel when you're competing. So they both play a role, and we'll get into that a little bit later in more detail. Again, I said I wasn't going to get out the calculator, but I thought I'd just flash this up just in case. This just shows based on who you are, whether you're moderately active, 1 hour or less, 1 to 3 hours, 4 to 5 hours, or if you're overweight and physically inactive. You can see how the ranges in terms of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight change. So you could do your own personal calculation dependent on where you fit in that chart to find out what your range of carbohydrate intake could be day to day. Again, we like to spend more time on this in our courses with participants to really explore that. But for the sake of this, I thought it'd be useful to at least put that information out there. Carbohydrate content in common foods. So you can see a mix of complex starches and simple sugars on this chart, and you can see the amount of grams in carbohydrate that can be achieved by ingesting those things. All right, so moving on to protein, and I know I'm going fast. Protein, again, the molecular currency there is 4 kilocalories per gram, so about the same, but it's not as quick in terms of energy providing. It has to be broken down, and it's not a great fuel source. We know our sources in terms of where we get it from food. Protein is one of those things that everybody likes to talk about in the media, and anybody on a diet is always telling you about protein. It's a mix of both animal and plant sources. The function, again, not as much in terms of providing energy, more in terms of repairing tissues, whether that be bones, muscles, or tendons on the structural side. And there's also a role to be played by protein in terms of hormonal function. So again, these are the building blocks of your body. And there is a conception out there that more protein equals more muscle. The more protein I eat, the bigger I'll get. Well, that is not necessarily true. Before I get into that, okay, I'll ask you that same kind of poll question. What percentage of kilocalories, energy in your diet should come from protein? So let me go in here. Let me go to my polls. Bear with me. Okay, share now. Sorry, it took me enough time. Okay, people are filling out the polls. Thank you very much. You're so much quicker than I am. All right, what percentage of your diet? We had around 20% say 0 to 10%. 73% said 10 to 35%. And two people did say 35 to 50%. So the recommendation from Health Promotion and the Dietitians of Canada is 10 to 35% is the range that we should be targeting for protein. So going back into my slideshow and switch back to your slideshows for me, please. Okay, so again, that's a big range. So 10 to 35%, that's quite a big range, and that is dependent on where you fall in this chart. So whether you're sedentary, moderately active, elite endurance, bodybuilder, those types of things will change your target in terms of, or your recommendation in terms of protein consumption. So you can be anywhere from 0.8 all the way up to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. That being said, I, in my experience as a health promotion manager in North Bay, more times than not, I don't see too much of a problem with people's protein consumption in their daily diets. I have a lot of people that definitely get enough in their day-to-day diets. And then on top of that, they're throwing protein drinks and things on top of it. So for somebody like myself, so I'm 70 kilograms. If I was going to be a bodybuilder and really go for it, and I wanted to target 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, that means 140 grams would be my absolute most that I could conceivably turn into muscle tissue and serve that purpose. I have people that have come into my office that farly exceed 200 grams of protein a day, well beyond what they could possibly use for that purpose. So it's a good calculation. Protein is extremely important. It's a macronutrient. We need it in large amounts for sure. But understand that we don't want to fall into that myth of more protein equals more muscle. We know that that's not true. If you eat too much protein and it can't be used, it can be stored as fat, just like carbohydrate would be. So there are definitely limitations. So just be conscious of those things. Find yourself in that chart. Give yourself an idea of where you fall and aim for that rough protein target with your carbohydrate as well. Protein content in common foods. There you go. There are some sources. Notice along that chart, there are both plant and animal sources for protein. And we should try to have a mix of both, not just one or the other. Fat, I won't forget fat. It's hugely important. Again, there's also some misconceptions out there in terms of if I don't eat any fat, then I won't be fat. We know that that's not true. We need actually 20 to 35% of our diet to come from fat. It serves a lot of purpose in our bodies. Essential fats, besides taste, absorb a lot of important vitamins and plant chemicals. Um, so we have to understand that we need a certain amount of fat a day. Where people tend to run into trouble is that they look at or they use sources of fats that are not preferable. So these are what we should be shooting for. We should be shooting for unsaturated fats, whether that be monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. Um, these are the fats that we should be trying to get into our bodies. We shouldn't be looking towards trans fats, and we should look at limiting our saturated fat consumption as well. But we should really be focusing on achieving that 20 to 35% with mainly unsaturated fats. Hugely important for athletes. And it's a fuel source for somebody who is a distance athlete. Your fat stores are something that pack a lot of energy, and can definitely be used for that purpose when you're going very long. Vitamins and minerals, again, more supportive in nature. We hope that we would get these things from our food. There could be some special needs out there. You see a few listed, including people that are over 50 or pre-pregnancy, vegans, that sort of thing. A lot of people ask me about one-a-days, something that you should definitely consult a nutritionist or a physician on if you're considering taking any kind of supplement that way. One-a-days are usually pretty safe because they offer just a little bit of everything, and you're probably not likely to get into toxicity levels. But that being said, it's not something that you should just guess on. You should consult a physician, maybe get some blood work done before you're looking at any of those extra things. We should really be focusing on food. So with that, what we should look at in terms of a daily routine is providing constant energy. Time and time again, when I work with people in nutrition, whether it be athletes or non-athletes, what I find in our experience here in North Bay is that people go a long time between meals. They wake up, they might not eat breakfast. Maybe the first thing they eat might be around 10 or 11 o'clock. There's a lot of just 3 big meal a day people that are at 22 wing. I don't know about the other wings, and I don't know about you at home. But what we really try to do in terms of everyday nutrition and especially athletic performance is turn people into grazers, motivate people to be eating something at least once every 2 to 3 hours to provide some constant energy so that you're not having energy crashes, and you're getting the most out of your energy levels throughout the day and the most out of your workouts. So these slides just give you some examples. The hardest part for most people, especially in the military, is that morning PT session. If you got to get into the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning before you get into work, a lot of people don't eat anything before they go into the gym. A morning snack is very important. And even if you start small with something like half a banana or half a granola bar or whatever, just to get something in your system before that workout, it could have a really big benefit in terms of your energy levels throughout the day, and also how hard you're able to work out or compete in the gym. So again, we want people to be definitely trying to focus on constant energy throughout the day. So this doesn't necessarily mean eat more. It just means spread it out, right? So we talk about this in our courses quite often. Okay, so now just switching gears and getting right into what most people, I think, take Top Fuel for Top Performance for, in terms of what do I eat and drink before, potentially during if I'm going long enough, and after exercise. And this is a big chart, and I understand that it probably doesn't serve a lot of purpose in this presentation because it's a lot of small print on a slide. That's why at the top I have our Facebook link that you can go to, and we have that on our page so that you can print this out at home and have this for your reference. But I'm going to take you through each of these components, each 3, and just talk about the main points for each, just to give you a good idea of what you're looking at. So before exercise, the idea, our first priority for sure is to think about fluid. We want to maintain our weight and our adequate urine output. So 2 to 4 hours before, we definitely want to try to drink between 300 and 600 milliliters of fluid. Um, when I'm having these discussions with athletes, I find I use a word quite a bit throughout these discussions, and it is depends. It depends. And a lot of this depends on your personal tolerance for fluid consumption, and later when we talk about fueling with food. But absolutely, for myself, if I drank that amount of water 2 hours before a run or some sort of long distance activity, I'm going to have to probably go to the washroom halfway through that activity. I'm definitely going to want to target, closer to the 3 or 4 hour mark when I'm consuming those fluids and not having it too close to my event. At the same time, there's also a lot of evidence that shows that last line serves a lot of purpose. Drinking 150 to 350 milliliters of water 15 minutes before a competition or an event or a practice session. That bolus of water seems to really be okay in terms of not making us have to go to the washroom too quickly into our event. But again, you experiment with this stuff in your training. There's a saying in a lot of endurance athletes that is on the morning of an event, there's a lot you can do to destroy your performance, and there's not a lot you can do to better it. So this is not something you want to try out the day of, these types of recommendations. You want to practice this stuff in your training to make sure that you know your body and how you're going to respond to this type of fluid consumption. Before exercise, 2 to 4 hours before, we want to look at eating a regular balanced meal. The only exception is we want to just try to keep that low fat if possible. Fat is not easily digestible, and you could feel that in your workout or in your competition. So we just want to be conscious of that one macronutrient. 1 to 2 hours before, that's when we're looking at mainly being carbohydrate or liquid meals. So whether that be orange juice and a banana you see in the slide there, crackers, granola bar, that sort of thing seems to be very acceptable in terms of how it works in your stomach and how it's converted into energy for your workout. Just some tips. Again, race day is not the time to try the new spicy food place down the street. So we want to be careful around high fiber and spicy things before athletic events. It could be a tough situation. So before or during exercise, so up to the hour mark, our evidence suggests that there really isn't too much of a role to play in terms of simple carbohydrate. All you need up to the hour mark for most training sessions is water. Okay, so if you know you're going an hour or less, you really don't need to be consuming anything except for water. It's not going to give you much of a performance boost. If anything, you're just taking in empty calories for no reason. Past the hour mark, that's when we see that there is some purpose in terms of introducing carbohydrate. So that's simple carbohydrate. So we saw that list of carbs earlier. We're talking about, the, very simple ones like honey and jelly beans and things like that are quick energy that can get into your system quite easily. Past the 3 hour mark, if we know we're going that long, if we're wild enough to be competing that long, especially if you're operating in the extreme heat, we need to think about replacing our sodium. Okay, and that's past 3 hours. So as we go, we recommend that we have a half a cup to a cup and a half every 15 to 20 minutes. Again, hydration should be preventative. We should not be trying to drink a lot of water at once, but always sipping on the water bottle. And then as far as carbohydrates, if we're going that long, again, past the hour mark, we're looking at 30 to 60 grams per hour. And again, I don't want to get into the calculator situation, but we talk about a 4 to 8% absorption rate. And that means for every liter of water, or for every 40 to 80 grams of carbs that you ingest, you should be having a liter of water with it so that it absorbs well in your stomach and you're able to have energy throughout your workout without cramping, and making sure that you have enough at the same time. So in our top fuel for top performance classes, we do a few different scenarios. We look at, okay, what's a good absorption rate for a given drink, and then, okay, I'm going long enough, I want to have food while I go. I want to have a Cliff Bar or a granola bar or whatever I might be eating. How much water do I have to consume with that to have a proper absorption rate in my stomach so I won't be cramping and I'm getting good, quick energy that way. For the sake of this briefing, we're not going to get into that nitty gritty part of it. The one slide that I will put up right now just shows you that there are some products out there that already kind of do that for us on the drink side of things, that give us the proper ranges, the recommendations for sodium and carbs within those given drinks. So just be conscious of that target as you go. Okay, food and fluid after exercise. The goals that we have, the main goals that we have as we go through, especially if you're looking to compete again within the next 8 hours. The first goal is replace your fluid. Second goal, replace your muscle glycogen, so your carbohydrate stores. Third, then we think about protein. And with all those things, we raise our immune system. So one mistake that I see quite a bit is right after a workout, the first thing I see is people come out of the workout and they're shaking the protein drink. So pure protein, not any carbohydrate, and they're not really focusing on water too much. They're going straight to the protein. In an effort not to waste that protein drink, because your body will actually take a certain amount of that protein and use it as a glycogen, muscle glycogen restoring activity. We want to make sure that you also have a little bit of carbohydrate in there as well. So the recommendation is that after we replace, I'll get into it in a minute. So I'll just finish up with water consumption. So with water, before we get back into food, we definitely want to look at replacing our water by 150%. So I have athletes that will weigh themselves before and after physical activity. And for every kilogram that they've lost, they know they got to replace their fluid by 150%. So that's one way of doing it if you're going long enough, for sure. Hopefully, as you've been preventative with fluid replacement throughout your workout, that isn't such a drastic replacement, but that lets you know how far you're off. Steps for refueling, again, replaced by 150%. Carbohydrates, 60 to 90 grams within 30 minutes. Protein, 15 to 20 grams of that. So you aim for a carb to protein balance of 4-to-1. So 60 grams of carbs and 15 grams of protein right after your workout. So that's what I wanted to get into just a minute ago. And this is what it would look like. That 4-to-1 ratio would look like these examples. So a bagel with chocolate milk, peanut butter sandwich with water, granola bar, apple milk, those other examples. Again, those all offer you that 4-to-1 ratio so that you're getting primarily carbohydrate to replace those glycogen stores as a part of your recovery, but also enough protein to replace, to repair your tissues. So that's definitely what you want to be looking at right afterwards. Not just focusing on protein, not just focusing on carbs, but having that 4-to-1 ratio. And in that chart on that link on our Facebook site, you'll see that reference in more detail with different options. Body weight goals. Okay, I just wanted to finish off the presentation and have a very quick discussion about this. So you're going to get your calorie target hopefully on dfit.ca, or when we get back into the workplace and you're working with a health promotion staff, and they'll help you in terms of finding that calorie target. And you're going to think about, do I want to lose weight? Do I want to gain weight? Or do I want to maintain my body weight? So a lot of people talk about fat, and this slide shows a question that I want to use in the poll next. How many calories are in 1 pound of fat? So I'm going to go and I'm going to fire up this poll again. Maybe not. All right, well, how about we just use the chat function? Take a guess. How many calories in 1 pound of fat? I'm looking at the chat right now. Oh man, everybody's getting the answer right. I guess it wasn't that good of a poll question after all. I'm glad I didn't have to go through the trouble of doing it. 3,500 calories is actually how many calories are in 1 pound of fat. So if we go back to the slideshow, and everybody can see me. So 3,500 calories. If we're looking at an attempt to lose weight, we know that dividing 3,500 by 7 days in a week would create 500 calories per day. So that seems to be a pretty decent target in terms of creating a deficit for yourself in reducing your weight. Now, people say, well, 1 pound a week, that's not a lot of fat. Like, I want to be able to lose 3, 4, 5 pounds a week on my diet. I hear people that have achieved that kind of success. To give you an idea of what a pound of fat is to take off of your body in terms of tissue. So that, can you see that? Trevor, can they see that? All right. That's a pound of fat. Okay. So to take that amount of tissue, yeah, it's kind of gross. Don't worry, it's not real. To take that amount of tissue off your body in a given week through exercise and proper diet is a significant achievement. So while it might not sound like a lot, like it's quite a bit of fat. Of course, it's more distributed than that in your body. But that's a lot. That's quite a significant achievement. So remember that while these numbers don't look significant on paper, in real life, that's quite a bit. 5 pounds of fat. 5 pounds of fat. Again, that's crazy. So if you're going to try to take one of these off your body every week, probably not realistic. So we have to be a little bit kind to ourselves and understanding that our body can only do so much, and we want to achieve things that are sustainable and we can take with us the long term, not just lose this within a month and then you yo-yo back on your diet and your exercise because it's not something that you could sustain. So that's 5 pounds of fat. On the flip side of things, I have a lot of men and women and personnel that are extremely frustrated when they can't put on muscle fast enough. If you look at our recommendations, we understand that we probably have to create a surplus of calories of 500 to 1,000 calories a day to grow muscle, and that we could probably hope to have the most of maybe 10 pounds of lean muscle tissue a year for an adult in terms of growth. It doesn't sound like a lot, but this is 5 pounds of muscle. Okay, that's like a serious calf muscle. So again, understand that putting on 5 pounds of muscle or 1 pound of muscle is going to take a long time. So we have to understand that we can only move at a speed that is sustainable, and that we need to be kind to ourselves and just trust our training and give it some time, and you'll see those results over time, but it's not going to happen overnight. All right. All right, I've had enough of my fat and my muscle. Again, dfit.ca will create that calorie target for you and according to your goals, whether it be the deficit or the surplus or maintaining your weight. So that's a good resource for you to use independently while you're out there in this situation that we're all in. Last slide that I have up there, and I think I'm finishing just under the hour mark. We're probably going to have about 5 minutes for questions. Again, resources, a lot of those that are relevant to the situation that's happening right now. We just like to flash that up and definitely take note of those as we go through this all together. So what I'll do now, I have 5 minutes left, Trevor tells me. I will take a look at the chat. And what I'll do is I'll try to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, we have a question. What is your opinion of intermittent fasting? So There are so many different attacks at intermittent fasting. I've heard so many different ways of going about it. So it really would depend. Again, what I'd fall back to is that if you're an athlete, fasting is very problematic in terms of the mantra that we have of providing constant energy. If we're going long periods of time without having that energy provided to your body, it could affect while you might see great effects on your body composition and the vanity side of things, you might not see good effects on the performance side of things. So, longevity wise, I try to steer people away from it. But if they're really hooked onto a new way of thinking, then I definitely work with somebody to try to meet them halfway, where there can be some fasting, but not to the extremes that I've seen. So it's not a straight answer, and I get that. We do have health promotion publications around intermittent fasting because it has been a hot topic. Um, so we can definitely share those on our Facebook site within the next day or so. We can put that up on the North Bay site as far as concerns and trends around intermittent fasting. Um, but I'll just leave it at that. It's one of those it depends type of answers. But really good question. It's a hot topic. Thank you. Last one from me. Do you think creatine supplementing is beneficial for sports and exercise? Um, it is to a small amount, I would say. So again, that 0 to 1% of our performance could be probably accredited to using something like that. Creatine um, helps with very short duration explosive exercises. So if we're trying to achieve hypertrophy with our muscles, um, we tend to look around the 8 rep to 12 rep range. Creatine seems to help us get out that extra rep or two, and thereby creating a little bit more muscle damage, and thereby creating more opportunity for our muscles to grow bigger faster. But what happens with creatine, and I can tell you from personal experience, is that it plays with your water content in your body. So while you might think that you're getting a lot bigger and a lot stronger, what's happening is you're actually getting puffy. Um, and you look like you've got a lot of muscle, but once you stop taking the creatine, you'll find that you're going to the washroom quite a bit. And when those water volumes come back to normal in your body, you're left with pretty close to what you had. So definitely it could help for like a football player that's doing those quick explosive activities, 10 seconds or less. But for most of us that are amateur athletes, or especially if we're doing distance training, creatine wouldn't serve a purpose that way. But if you're really into bodybuilding and you want that just little extra edge, potentially you could have some positives from creatine. Any other questions? Ephedrine, okay. Ephedrine is another tricky one. It'll definitely give you a boost of energy, like a caffeine pill type of thing. But ephedrine, I would say, has some dangerous properties to it in terms of themselves in a situation where they're having heart arrhythmias or high blood pressure, that sort of thing. I would steer people away from ephedrine. I remember playing competitive hockey, people taking ephedrine and having those side effects that were not pleasant and kind of scary. So I would definitely I would advise not to take ephedrine for your everyday workout. No, stick to a cup of coffee if you really need a boost before an event or before a workout. Yeah, caffeine before a workout could be okay, but it's a diuretic, so it could make you have to go to the washroom. It also could play with your hydration to a certain amount. But for the most part, a cup of coffee before a workout isn't a big deal. But we don't want to be having too much caffeine, and to the point where we have the jitters before our workout, because we have to concentrate on our form and things like that. Yeah, no problem. What is the best way to replace the sodium you're losing during distance runs? I've seen a lot of people, and I've worked with a lot of people that will take a regular sports drink and add a pinch of salt to it. And you can measure that up a little bit better to look at the values. Again, this is where Top Fuel for Top Performance course comes into play, where we can actually look at that drink, look at how much salt we're putting into that drink, and make sure that we're following within the proper absorption rates and recommended ranges for sodium. So really tough question to answer, but perhaps a pinch of salt to your regular sports drink might be a good remedy that way. But it's something that you definitely want to contact your local HP department about, or a nutritionist, to make sure that you're getting the proper range. Yeah, no problem. Okay, I think we gotta. Trevor's giving me one of these, so I think we gotta wrap it up. You've been awesome, and you've been very forgiving as I fumbled through the presentation. My first time doing this. I hope to do it again. Stay safe, stay healthy. I appreciate everyone's service, that our members and their families online. We hope to continue to deliver these presentations and reach you when and where we can as we go through this. And hopefully this will all be a distant memory at some point for us. And we'll be back to work and face to face. And not as funny as Between Two Ferns. I tried my best. I have my props. I'm not that funny naturally, so I got to bring these things in. But hey, I appreciate it. All right. All right. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Bye.